for a podcast.
Welcome to Extraordinary Ability with your host, Candice Ackermann. Every episode celebrates foreign nationals with extraordinary abilities who qualify for O1, EB1, and IW visas. You can find this show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on www.visalawpros.com. Now here's the host of Extraordinary Ability, Candice Ackermann.
Hi, everybody. I'm Candice Ackermann, founder and managing attorney of visalawpros.com. And we are back after quite a long hiatus because I got very busy with another episode of Extraordinary Ability. And I'm so pumped and jazzed to invite my guest to introduce himself, say where he is from and what is his area of extraordinary ability, because today's podcast is going to be an exciting one. I'm very honored to have had the pleasure of working with you, and please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of working with you as well. I really appreciate all the support and help with my case. And to introduce myself, I am Marcus Mepstead. I'm a British Olympic fencer, silver medalist at World Championships, gold medalist at European Games, and two-time Olympian.
Incredible. And I have actually worked with one medal winner before. He was too busy and too cool to be a podcast guest. Maybe he still will one day, but this is the second time that I've worked with somebody who won a medal in the Olympic Games. I don't believe you guys know each other, so one wasn't referred by the other, but nonetheless, it's really an honor and a privilege. Can you please share with us? I mean, it's not every day that you meet someone who's won a medal, even any medal in the Olympics, let alone more than one. So can you share with us a little bit about what it was like becoming a rising star in the UK, and then jump right into your first Olympic experience? Where was that? What was that like? Also share with us, sorry for all the questions, but share with us a little bit about the categories, because fencing turns out to be a little bit nuanced. I know before in regards to your sport. So if someone doesn't know anything about Olympic fencing and the different categories like boxing, for example, tell us a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, definitely. So my medals were in World Championships and European Games, not in the Olympics. So just to make sure that was clear. But no, that's okay. But on the way to the Olympic Games and on the way to there, it was a big part of me getting there was those medals at those events to secure the qualification. And just to step back a little bit, I guess, to introduce the sport of fencing. There is 3 weapons in fencing: foil, epee, and saber. My sport that I practice is foil, the men's foil category. And you can qualify through the individual or the team route for an Olympic Games. And you have to qualify through your region. So being a British athlete, I actually not only have to be one of the best in my country, but in the whole of Europe in order to qualify. So for the Rio Olympic Games, qualified as part of the team, as we were the first British team to actually qualify for an Olympic Games. And in Tokyo, we weren't able to qualify a team, so I had to go through the individual route. And I was the number 1 European to qualify through the zone. I was off the back of my World Championship medal. And yeah, it was a really tough journey for me, I would say. It was a big change after making the finals in the Rio Games. We finished 6th in the team event. I was really hoping to push again and qualify for the team, but our team fell short, and it was really a fight for that one spot to make it, because once your team doesn't qualify, only one athlete per nation can go. And the qualification and the participation in Olympic Games actually does a huge thing for your sport. So being the sole qualifier for fencing across all weapons and individual and team for the UK actually unlocks funding for your sport. It helps future generations, not just through the impact of getting to see you compete, but actually from a financial point of view, it's able to support grassroots within the sport itself as well. So there really is like a huge knock-on effect from qualification, not just for yourself, but also for your sport and those looking to follow in your footsteps, which is pretty cool.
Can you explain how it's both an individual and a team sport? If you have a weapon as a foil, I assume it's just you and one other individual against whom you're competing. So how is it that you're an individual competitor and a team competitor? I don't know if that's a silly question, but that's
No,
what
it's a great question. It's a great question. I should have maybe explained that further. So the way it works from the individual and the team, obviously the individual is 1v1. You're fighting against the opponent in front of you, and you go through a qualification stage, and then you work your way, obviously knocking each person out in front of you until you get to the finals, and then the winner off the back of that. Normally in fencing, everything is done in one day. So at the Olympic Games, you start very first match and you go all the way down to the final. The team event follows the same, but the difference is it's a group of you fighting individually, collecting points to a total. So there'll be 3 athletes per team, like fighter 1, 2, 3 on my side, and then fighter ABC on their side. I will fight each person, and you have a cumulative point system going up to 45 points. So the first matchup will go up to 5 points, and then the second matchup going up to 10 points until you get up to 45, with each fencer fighting the other one. Does that help explain it a little bit?
It does. And what does it mean to win points? Like, can you explain the mechanics without, for those of us who have little to no familiarity with the rules and how you
No,
advance?
definitely. Please feel free to keep asking these questions because I'm so involved in the sport. It just feels like normal for me talking about it. But yeah, of course, like the way that you score the points.
Yeah.
So I'll focus on foil. So there's different actually target areas depending on the weapon that you're competing in. So for me, which is a foil, you're looking to hit the torso or the back. So if you ever see the sport and you see the kind of grey jacket that looks a bit like I guess a cross between a gilet and a shirt. That gray area is the target area, and then everything white is an off target, so it doesn't count towards a point. There is also the added confusion for the sport that it's a right of way sport. So whoever's attacking, whoever's either initiating the push for the point or initiating the attack, has the right of way to score the point. So if you ever watch the sport and you see the way the scoring system is, there's 2 lights that come up, a red and a green light for if you've hit the target on, and a white light if you've hit it off. If you see 2 lights coming up and the 2 athletes cheering for themselves, it's because they're trying to show that they had the right of way. Sometimes it's very obvious and other times it's not so obvious. But you're basically constantly fighting to get that right of way in the sport to have the right to score the point effectively.
And are there penalties or
so
ways to lose points? I know
yes.
I lose points in other categories of my life sometimes. Not with my clients ever, but do you ever lose points in fencing?
Yeah, you can. So the way you lose or you get penalized will be if you cover. So if you're covering the target area with any of the off target area. So if I use my hands to cover the chest or my stomach or my back, then that will be I will get penalized for it. In the same way that if another way is, I guess, trying to avoid the hit by falling over, by trying to disturb the flow of the match. Maybe you're taking too many breaks, or you're arguing with the referee and the opponent, trying to stall. Those are things that can penalize you in the match. And the penalty system, you get a yellow card as like a warning, and then you get a red card, which is a lost point. So that's the opponent gets a point, and then the last card is a black card, and that one will be if you get basically kicked out of the match and you automatically lose. Those would be, I would say, the 3 penalty systems. There is also one other way for you to lose a point, which is the way that the I guess our arena is set up, or where we're fighting. We fight on a strip of metal, and it's 14 meters long. And if you go off the back of it, so if you are trying to avoid the opponent's attack and you go too far off behind, you can get to the end of it, and if you go off, you lose a point there. So more complexities to add to the sport, which hopefully you're all following.
So just to be clear, the medals that you won was for European Championships, but you still did attend the Olympics in an individual capacity and as part of a team in both Rio and Japan, correct?
Exactly. So I
You
have
guys didn't medal there.
No. So my highest placement was sixth in the Rio Olympic Games, and then at World Championships I have a silver medal, which has been my highest placement, and then European Games I have a gold medal, which was my highest placement. So medals across at top levels, which is except for the Olympic Games.
Okay, and what did it feel like to represent your country at an Olympic Games? And was there a difference between doing that in Brazil and Japan in your experience, like both as an athlete and just personally? What did those experiences mean for you?
Yeah, I definitely had two very contrasting experiences, I would say. The Rio Olympic Games was an incredible Olympic Games. It was my first one. I was so excited to be there. I had friends and family come over. I had, I had a moment which sticks with me. I think will stick with me forever. It's like walking out into the stadium and just seeing the look on my friends and family's face and just seeing them look so proud. And that was such a really nice feeling to one see what that looked like played out, but also to feel like I belong there, which was also a really good feeling as well. Like sometimes the moment can take over and you can feel like, I'm sure everyone gets imposter syndrome. It doesn't matter at what stage you could turn up and be like, wait, am I ready for this? But actually I turned up and I was like, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to go, which was also a really nice feeling as well. I had my routine, I had my setup, and I really tackled it. And I felt like I took the most out of it, which was great. And then fast forward 4 years, the Olympic Games in Tokyo was a completely different affair. It was so, I would say, such an internal games. There was no crowd because of COVID, so no friends or family were able to come through. The qualifying period was delayed a year. There was so much uncertainty, and yeah, I think it was such an internal games, whereas I felt like the Rio Olympics was such an external showcase of the sport. This one felt completely different, and I can't say I enjoyed it as much, but there's always elements to an Olympic Games that you either learn from or you appreciate, you have gratitude for, and that's one of the key things I would say was to be able to have something to look forward to and to really like channel my energy towards during that COVID period. Everyone had so much uncertainty. There was so much, I guess, fear going on at the time, and to be able to have a few hours in the day where I could really just like channel my focus. And even though my training ended up being for 6 months hitting my fencing bag in my garden, because I wasn't able to go to a training center, I wasn't able to compete against anyone. That was my I guess my purpose for for 6 months. I was able to have that purpose and able to channel it. So even though there were two very different games, I definitely felt like I was able to come away from the lows of Tokyo, I would say, still keeping my head high, which was which is a great thing to be able to do.
Thank you so much. That's really lovely to hear. And it does segue me into the next question or practice pointer that I want to offer to the viewers, because everyone can see the display of how much humility you have as a person and as an athlete, because you can just tell that by the way that you express yourself and your joy and dignity that you give to the sport just by explaining your rise to fame. But look how humble you are. But what I wanted to point out is that oftentimes clients will come to me and say, oh, can you help me with this kind of case? These are my goals. I want to get a visa or a green card or citizenship, and this is the path that I have decided is the right one for me, or that I know to be right for me, which was the case in your instance. You were referred by a close friend of mine, another attorney who you had sought on another matter, and you contacted me in regards to filing a family type of case. And in the midst of our consultation, it just happened to come out that, lo and behold, you just happen to have been a medal winner in international competition and be an Olympian, and have served in not just one but two Olympic Games. So what I want to point out as a practice pointer is that ordinarily one would think that just a family case based on a relationship would be, you know, the most streamlined, the easiest path for somebody, and maybe it is, but it's always important to take a wide-eye view at a person's circumstances and background and credentials, maybe in the family case instance, but as well as on the other side, on the employment context. And extraordinary ability cases, even though they're self-sponsoring, are considered employment-based. It's always worthwhile looking at the full picture, because it happened to be that in your case, a priority for you was the need to travel. And also, you know, we were looking at overall costs, timeline, the need to travel. And it just so happened to be that filing your case in the employment setting based on extraordinary ability, in the aggregate, in the long run, would be less expensive, faster, and would facilitate your need to be able to travel back and forth between the UK and the US. So that is a practice pointer. You know, never take at face value what the clients say they need, because they're coming to you to find out, you know, what is the best possible route for them. And it may very well be that there's more than one. And look, we both won out of this, because thankfully we were successful in your case. Your EB1 extraordinary ability immigrant visa petition was approved, and I got to have you as a guest on my podcast, because I don't interview family-based cases, because those are somewhat run-of-the-mill and not as entertaining for the viewers, perhaps. So it was a win-win. And that segues me to my next question that I do like to ask some of the guests. You know, if you could share with everyone on Facebook land and the viewers some of your experiences working with me in your firm, in my firm, and what it was like. And maybe if someone's considering, you know, applying for an extraordinary ability visa or green card case, you know, what were your experiences like, and, you know, what advice would you offer the newbies?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one of the things which was really helpful for me was your humility and your ability just to, I guess, ask the right questions, because I came in with some idea, but I didn't really have a very clear idea how to approach this. And I think you did a really good job of really understanding who I was and what my situation was, and then coming up with a solution that was better than what I brought to the table, which I think is what you assume a lawyer will do when you come to it, but not always. And I had spoken to a few before, trying to understand the best way. Yeah, and I think you were really helpful in that, which was great. I think also, like, it is a difficult process to know, like, where to navigate, even who to turn to, how to approach this. It's for the person outside, from my point of view, it's such a difficult space. And yeah, I think I really appreciate that you took me on this journey, and were super helpful, like really polite, answered all my questions, even if they were maybe a little bit stupid or maybe too many.
Never.
But no, I always felt that you were really helpful on that, which was great. And yeah, just in terms of my situation, like, obviously, with my sport, I have to travel a lot, not just the US and the UK, but actually, in order for us to collect world ranking points, you need to travel the world to go to those competitions. So I couldn't I couldn't be stuck in one place for too long. I had to have the ability to travel. That was something that I remember saying to you, it's like, oh, this is something that we need to be able to manage. And then, yeah, I guess just being able to open up about my background. You know, I think once I said I was an Olympian, talking about my Olympic sport, you showed interest in it. And I guess between the personal side and the lawyer side, you were then able to piece the two and say, oh, this is interesting, but also we might have a case here for something else, which was really, really helpful. So yeah, I think that once you went into it more detail, like, obviously the way that you asked in the questions was asking, like, the awards that I've had, the media coverage that I've had, the results that I've had. I get, from my point of view, I just thought you were taking interest, but I guess that was part of that. But also, you were trying to piece together the best case to put forwards, and it was. We got it approved, which was really, really great. So yeah, just a big thank you from my side, I guess.
it was my absolute pleasure. And just from my end, of course, I always do take a personal interest, and that's kind of what the podcast is about, not to just showcase kind of the legal side, but to also see just how interesting and extraordinary, not just in the legal sense that the clients really are, but to, you know, sort of feature and showcase them, what they've done in the past, what, you know, what the future looks like. And if you will, maybe just we'll close with one final question that comes up, which is, what does a person do who's gone to the Olympics and reached the pinnacle of his career? Like, what happens after that? You know, what does that look like for somebody who's already twice visited the Olympic Games in terms of
yeah. In terms of, I guess in terms of like my personal journey,
or however you want to answer that question, as an athlete, as a person, you know, how does it, you know, where do you go from there?
yeah, I think one of the, I would say that the first time that you reach different heights, I guess. The first time would have been that first Olympic Games that I went to. I came away, you know, you qualify, you get your letter from Team GB in my case, like congratulating you going there. You suddenly meeting members of the royal family. You're really like elevated to I guess another level than you've been used to, and you have that huge sense of pride that you've been able to represent your country as well. Like that was something I thought was really cool. And then you're like, okay, so where's the next level? Where do I go from there? And I didn't medal in that sense, and I was like, right, I want to medal. I want to try and push for it. And you're going along the way, and you realize the journey isn't just a straight line up there. There's plenty more ups and downs over the 4-year cycle for an Olympic cycle. And I guess the next height that I reached was the World Championship medal. That was a big thing for me. It was huge. There's not many British athletes that medal at the senior level at World Championships. So you've reached that other height. And I think that was a key thing for me, which reframed my perspective on success, actually. I think that point there allowed me to kind of understand that killing yourself for success actually doesn't feel that good when you're up on the podium. I think if you're in gold, silver, or bronze, if you're in that spot and you haven't enjoyed the journey to get there, which in some respect I would say, like for me, going into that World Championship, earning that medal, it was a huge achievement, but it didn't. It I felt happy in some respect, but it also didn't sit right in some respect, and I felt like there was a lot of work to do to make sure that there was almost like a self-care to success that I was taking forwards. And I made that a really big priority, like going over the next, it was the 2 years up to Tokyo, which ended up being 3 years because of the COVID break. And it allowed me to really make sure that I was looking after myself going in, and now I can look at a high point or a low point in my career with fondness, both. You know, from a low point, it's actually, for me, I see it as something that is quite special. I've been able to be so involved in something's meant so much to me that even though I didn't achieve it, I was like really upset about it, but I was passionate about it. I had really strong feelings towards it. In the same way that when I've achieved something and I feel so happy about it, I'm very grateful that I've got these feelings and I'm doing something that means so much to me. And I think it's allowed me, I guess, to wrap it up, to allow me to really narrow down what my values are, and understanding what my values are and how I take them into not just a fight when I'm going into a competition, but my everyday, like when I'm going into training, when I wake up in the morning. If I can bring my values into that every single day, then I'm having loads of success, loads of mini success. And your success then doesn't just become a binary win-loss outcome. It becomes something that you can have a little bit more control of, something that you can take along the journey with you. And I think ultimately allows you to come out of a career, and hopefully this is what will happen, but it will be able to come out of a career feeling like you've achieved more than just results, which I think is a really, really important thing for any athlete, to be honest.
I love what you said, and it's very consistent with what I've heard and read from a lot of champions across different disciplines, not just in sports. But 2 final questions, because you mentioned you met members of the royal family. So which members of the royal family did you meet, and did you meet Harry and Meghan?
I didn't actually meet Harry and Meghan. I got to meet the Queen, Princess Anne as well, and Prince William. Those were 3 of the royal family members that I met. So I think they're pretty good ones, to be honest, as well. I don't know how everyone feels about the royal family, but in the UK, it's quite I think quite a privilege to get to meet them.
I think that's amazing. So just to conclude, I do want to just share publicly that it's really been my honor and pleasure to work with you, to meet you, to know you. I hope we do keep in contact and see, where your champion and noble, character and trends take you in the future in the United States. And I wish you all the very best of luck, and that you continue to grow, strive, and succeed. Thank you for having the pleasure of being my guest today, and cheers to everyone in Facebook land and on YouTube.
Thank you so much for having me too.
You've been tuning into Extraordinary Ability with your host, Candice Ackermann. Learn how you may qualify for O1, EB1, and IW visas. Please visit www.visalawpros.com to contact us and for other episodes. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.